This is the Crucible, the JRTC experience.
Third round observed safe and effective. Fire mission. Fire mission.
This is Joint Fires. In this series, we discuss fires, warfighting skills, and lessons learned in a decisive action training environment for large-scale combat operations at JRTC.
Hi, my name is CW3 Jerrad, Rader, the Brigade Targeting Officer here at the Joint Readiness Training Center. Welcome back to another episode of the Crucible, the JRTC experience. We've got a very special guest with us today. He was also the hero of the battle during this rotation. So if you wouldn't mind, Chief, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and then kind of tell us about your previous experiences in the Army thus far.
Yeah, no problem. My name is CW3 James Crain. I joined the Army in 2004, which means I'm 41 years old, which means I'm really old, and I have a whole bunch of stories about back in my day. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan, 1 deployment to Iraq as enlisted as a 13 Delta, converted to a 131 Alpha in 2016, completed WOBIC, and immediately deployed to OIR as 2nd Brigade or 2nd Battalion, 82nd Field Artillery in 1st Cav, augmenting 2nd Brigade 82nd, which is super confusing, as the counter officer at that point in time. What I learned was that you can't fight LSCO in an OIR type environment. I tried to apply that to the NTC rotation, was extremely unsuccessful. And actually, that was the first time in my career I ate the big pie of humble pie, if you will.
There you go.
Big slice of it, and got the reality check. After that, I went to Korea as a TAPL for a year. That was actually a very positive experience for me because I had to really understand the radars. And then moved up to ACFO in 1st Cav Davardi after that. Got to conduct a warfighter, the 2101, which we were the first division to do the Lithuania scenario. Learned a lot. I understood now. That was the first time I truly understood LSCO from a division aspect and what brigades mean now in a LSCO environment. After that, PCS to Fort Drum, went to be the S2 targeting officer at Davardi. So that's where they needed me, and I conducted the 2305 warfighter, same scenario, coincidentally the same side of the battlefield, and the same result happened again with the 9052s and 1991s. After that, I did 1 year in division. I didn't really get much experience as a division target officer, not the, but a division target officer. And then June of 23, I moved down to 1st Brigade to be their targeting officer, and I just conducted 2407 JRTC rotation.
That's great. Certainly a plethora of experience there. Before we dive into the Army stuff, I want to dial it back. So from Memphis, I heard from a mutual friend of ours that you're from Memphis, but you're a 49ers fan.
Huge 49ers fan.
Yeah, how does that happen?
It's really easy. And because I'm old, there was no football teams in or around Memphis at the time.
Okay.
Houston was the Oilers, not Tennessee. The Rams were in L.A., not St. Louis, which is now in L.A. again. And there was Joe Montana, Jerry Rice.
Okay, I get it.
And then Steve Young. Like, who doesn't want to root for that?
And I'm with you. As a Notre Dame fan, I can respect that. Montana. No, I get it completely.
Yep.
So obviously 13 Delta previously. What made you do the transition into being a 131?
To be brutally honest, I enjoyed the technical portion of FDC. I love being on the gun line. I love being with my 13 Bravo. I loved you guys to death because I know you're a proud 13 Bravo. I fit in there. What I learned once I moved up battalion and brigade, it wasn't for me, man. And I wanted I had a choice at that point in time in my career to I had made sergeant first class. I was at almost 12 years. And I was about to get out the Army. I needed to change something. And luckily, when I was in 210 FA Brigade in Korea, as enlisted, I had a good group of 131s who grabbed me up and like, you're doing the wrong job. And here's a better job for you. And I needed something different to challenge me. And I didn't feel like I was being challenged as a sergeant first class. And I did not want to be a first sergeant either. Because of what I thought a first sergeant was at the time was not reality. So and it's not a shot at first sergeant. It's not how I envisioned it as a private. You always think as a private first sergeant is this like mythical creature, but like that's not true. They're human beings too, and they have tasks and requirements that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something harder, something more challenging. I wanted to push myself through my military career.
Yeah, I gotcha. So for the viewers that don't know, the 131 Field Artillery Technician, right? what does a 131 do on the staff other than like take a lot of naps or put our hands in our pockets, like and getting all the myths out on the staff? What's 131?
I've already talked to my union reps about the lack of afternoon naps.
Yeah.
No air conditioning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that they broke the warrant officers union, and my union rep will be notified.
Okay.
That's the first things. So we do, like, surprisingly enough, what I've learned is we do everything. Because we are trained in every warfighting function from WOBIC up. So you help the four. You're not a logistician by any means, but like you want to manipulate the four, not in a negative manner, but like, hey sir, look at class 5.
Yeah.
You got to work the intel warfighting function because, to be honest with you, decide, detect, and assess is done by the intelligence warfighting function.
Yeah.
They help at least the majority of it. And then obviously maneuver, you got to understand maneuver just because you're supporting it. Fire support. I can go on protection. Like, we need this stuff protected, and like it's in the words, but like it is what it is. Like, we need all these, like, so like the way to sum up our MOS is we're a warfighting function integrator.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think you're a Swiss Army knife, and I think that we saw that throughout the rotation, right? And I think that like it's a multidisciplinary integrating process. If we don't know a little bit about everything, we're not going to be as successful. And I think even from, and you mentioned the protection side, even from that aspect, some of the things like when we're selecting and prioritizing targets and matching the appropriate response to protect our vulnerabilities, it kind of ties into that protection.
You're absolutely correct.
You know what I mean? So like, I think you're spot on. The 131 on the staff being, we're a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, a little bit, right? If we don't know everything with those other warfighting functions, it makes it hard to integrate that, right?
You're absolutely correct.
So leading up to JRTC, before we tie into or really dive into like our experiences here and everything that you learned, right? I'd love to hear about your training glide path coming up to it. So as we transitioned all the way up to LTP, kind of the things that we learned, if we could go back and do anything different, what would that be?
All right, so I'm lucky. I have a brigade commander who came in initially and says, I love targeting.
Yeah.
That will not always be the case, and we know that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to sell it for that brigade commander to understand, and then when they finally do understand, it's great. But I had a brigade commander who understood it. He was mentored by CW4, maybe CW5 now, Joey Temple, and I appreciate Mr. Temple for doing that. So Colonel Kearney, Warrior 6, came down. That's the first thing he said. Hey, Chief, we do targeting here, and I want it done in every possibility we can do it.
That's great.
So I started building that rapport early.
Yep.
I was getting in his head, trying to understand what he wants to do, meet his intent, understand how he sees targeting. And the one struggle I have with Colonel Kearney, and I'll tell him to this day, is like he came from Corps, and he initially came down and tried to pull Corps targeting to a brigade, and I had like, sir, we can't do that here. You have a FA battalion, you have a cavalry squadron, we have these shadows, we have these ravens, and we have forward observers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Significantly less assets, sure. Yeah.
Correct. There's no HIMARS coming to save you.
Yeah.
There's
no one's coming to help, right?
There's no EMP assets coming to protect us.
Yeah.
And I think once he started to like understand that, we then identified, and I pushed hard even during our training cycle, was like, sir, we're not requesting CAS here.
Yeah.
We need to plan to fight organic assets first. We have 60 millimeter mortars.
Look, no, you're spot on. And we talked that ad nauseum as well. Like when we are assuming our higher headquarters division, right? When they did co-development, they assessed relative combat powers. When they began to array forces in their MDMP process,
Correct.
right? They task organized you appropriately. The days of like coming out here and trying to request CAS, like that's not what we're trying to do. They gave you everything based on the COFMs, based on the enemy vulnerabilities, the friendly vulnerabilities to accomplish your mission.
Correct. That's the definition of an AO.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, defend yourself.
Yes, exactly. Accomplish our mission and protect our forces. They assign that to you with the appropriate tasks organized to do that. So I think that's great. In our training glide path, certainly. That's 100% the conversations and the things that we need to be having with our commanders.
So our challenge was that our division was forward.
Yep.
So we were writing our own, and it's no like to say anything. Like division was doing their mission.
Yeah.
And they were awfully busy at that point in time. So this isn't like a shot at 10th Mountain Division. It's just the nature of the beast that like divisions deploy, and then brigades sometimes have to learn how to train.
Yeah.
They sometimes dad's not gonna be there to help you out. So that was our only shortcoming, was that the JRTC was the first time that we received a division order that wasn't what we wanted.
Yeah.
And it stung.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
it hurt really bad.
Yeah, I think that's great though, because I think a lot of times, at least what I've seen through some of my previous experiences, Chief, is that when we're trying to teach targeting us 131s, like we're intimately familiar with it. We can spit you the definition of targeting. And then I think that we can't throw up a slide and then teach that to our staffs. Like, hey, this is what a target is. This is what a high payoff target list means. And then expect them to then be able to go and execute it. Like in our training glide path, we got to set a map down, right? We got to set out friendly and enemy situation, and we need to literally execute a working group and get after that. You know what I mean?
And we did that.
Yeah.
So I will tell you, we had what's called a Warrior Peak, which is like a brigade training event.
Yep.
We spent 3 weeks, maybe 4. I probably got the most field time as a 131 Alpha.
Yeah, right. Back to your union rep.
Warrior,
You know what I mean?
Warrior 6 has drug me through the field, and I'm too old for this. All right?
Yeah.
I'm just keeping it it's completely honest.
Yeah.
Like, I spent a lot of time in the field.
That's good.
But it was good because I got to train probably like 20 captains, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah,
like
sure.
on this stuff.
Yeah.
So like I understand they probably don't completely grasp what is going on, but they got a taste of what to understand, and they had to understand their inputs and outputs.
Yeah, fair, yeah.
That was what I was hammering home. Like, what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
That I need to do my job.
Yeah.
So we can actually synchronize the commander's assets and, like you said, appropriately prioritize them, and then like get after what he wants, achieving the commander's intent. Like at the end of the day, I fight off commander's intent.
No, I think that's great. I think that's great. And back to that, I think that we have to have several iterations of that, right? I know CW4, Chris Ludwig, when he was in Hunter First, he stood up targeting sustainment training program, what they execute there. And it's just that. Get out a map, get out your friendly enemy situation, bring your fighting products to the table, and then run through a process, opposed to just throwing something on a slide and going through it. You know what I mean? Like, we're literally able to execute it. And it's that simple. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. We just know what the inputs and outputs are, right?
It's just like to go with what you're saying, like anything more than a map at the BCT, you're probably wrong.
Yeah.
Because I want to know where your manpower is coming from.
Right.
What is it? You? Because I want to know when you're sleeping.
Yeah. But I think that specifically in the training glide path, like that's some of the stuff we're trying to hash out. I mean, we don't want to show up to JRTC or to large scale combat, right, and then not understand the specific inputs, like literally the product, not just understand on a 7-minute drill on a quad chart, hey, these are the things you need to breed, but no kidding what they look like, how we're fighting them, has co-op seen them, you know.
And that's why I was pushing on, like, not to like push back on like the division or anything, but like when we went out there, we had a false sense of security of what we could do.
Yeah.
Because there was nobody applying pressure to us. We were applying pressure to ourselves, which is, I don't know, it's mildly entertaining.
Yeah.
This was the first time we actually had real pressure. Because we had real enemy.
Yeah, a good enemy, right?
They won heck of a vote.
Yeah, they do.
Especially in the defense. Shout out to Geronimo.
Yeah.
Like that's the part that just impossible in my opinion. You could say whatever culminating event division used to do, based off the shifts of the chief of staff of the army, of like the training company battery troops, the primary. You know, these culminating events before we go to JRTC, we call them like the Pegasus Forge, Mountain Peaks, or the Eagle. I can't remember what it's called. But those things, like even at that, your division showed you mercy.
Sure. Yeah, Geronimo shows no mercy, right?
Correct. And it's like a platoon of dudes out there with rifles, and you're like, all right, man.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting the true sets and reps that you will get here.
Yeah, absolutely. They certainly provide great training reps, for rotation training units, for sure. So but in the training glide path, before we shift here, were you able to tie in assessments at all? And I know sometimes we find that difficult to execute here, and then it takes us 4 or 5 days once the enemy votes, and we can execute our feedback loops and tie it back into our targeting process. Were you able to train any of that at all?
Absolutely not, because so we did. I take it back. We did. So we did CPX 5, and that's where we played the simulation.
Sure.
And I had 1 day of assessments.
Yeah.
But again, we were 24 hours ahead of plan.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Let's get back to reality. That one didn't give us the true So I will say we did, and I was able to provide the commander assessments based off this and this.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to the quote of Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Well, 24 hours in advance is not getting punched in the face.
No, I get that. I think and I think back in that training glide path discussion, I think that like maybe we're not executing the assessments right in our training glide path, but we can still talk through it. Similar to how you and I have talked through through a TSM. First, we're going to do is we're going to look at the decide function and determine, hey, what was that high payoff target list or that high payoff target rather, even in the AO. Then we're going to transition to that detect block, right? Did the shadow fly? Did it look at the right hilltop 1 or the right NAI? You know what I mean? And
Correct.
I think the methodology in which you're gonna execute at assessments, I think that piece can be trained, and I think there's significant value into that. So that way, as we're updating running estimates, you know what I mean, and it's being fed back into our feedback loops, into our assessments piece, I think there's a lot of value there.
So I will tell you that the one thing I will semi-push back on is this right here. Is you're commander dependent. Mm-hmm. Warrior 6 wants to so what, and he just he calls it the news, weather, and sports.
Yeah.
And I understood.
Yep.
I was walking internally with the twig, the TISM.
Yep.
All he wanted was a bluff.
Sure. Yeah. Fair. Yep.
So you got to understand your commander, and this goes back to the original point of you need to have a rapport to brigade commander early.
I agree.
In that training.
Yeah. And I think with that rapport, understanding how your commander wants. Your commander probably has a methodology in his head where he is conducting problem solving, if that makes sense. And I think being nested with that, building that rapport, understand how he sees the fights, that enables you to get ahead of when he's going to come to the coordination board and say very specific set questions that he's going to ask. He probably asks those very specific questions every single day. You know what I mean?
Well, and even at that, the assessments, if he hasn't heard it by the time he got to me, it's already too late.
Fair. It's probably you're probably
way too late.
It's probably a little bit too late.
We're already getting the jab, the hook, and everything else. I'm pretty sure you heard on the co-ops floor.
Correct.
Because he's hearing live operational assessments. He's hearing enemy assessments.
Yeah.
He's hearing that, so he's probably put two and two together. As much as I will give Warrior 6 a hard time on this one, he tries to play I don't know. He's a smart man.
Oh, he is. He's very smart. He's
actually intelligent.
Yeah, he was great. So if there's anything you could have changed in your training glide path, either from before LTP or LTP on, before coming here, if there's one thing you would have changed,
I wish I would have got punched in the face a lot sooner.
Sure.
The reason being,
it's a little bit more realistic. Yeah.
The reason why what I'm saying is I tried to run my working group like a division style working group, and there's no offense to a division, but every division and core target working group, and I've seen a bunch from different 41s, is a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
We don't have that time and luxury at the brigade.
No, absolutely not.
It is a dirty version of what you think it should be.
Yeah.
The days of PowerPoint presentations, ripping over. No, those days are gone, man.
I love it.
We don't even have a printer.
Yeah, neither should we though. I would argue in our main command post, when we're really getting down to the nuts and bolts and everything that we have to have, I don't even think we need chairs in large scale combat. Your tough box, saddle tough box, whatever it is, we need to be able to transition rapidly.
You saw it. Where was most of my twigs done?
Yeah, underneath the net. Yep.
No,
I think that's the right answer though. You know what I mean? But I think we got to be able to train that way, right?
Which we did. I will say that we trained because we came down with this minimal mission essential equipment.
Yep.
We came into the box with less than 500 pieces of rolling stock.
Yeah.
So getting light was our motto very early. So you couldn't have punished any more than we already been punished.
Yeah.
Coming in. We understood that. If you notice, we were very comfortable being that way though.
Yeah.
There was nobody complaining.
Yeah.
So we came there understanding that we were going austere was a joke to us. Okay, yeah, we've been doing this in the freezing cold. We're just gonna do it.
We're gonna be all right.
Yeah, we're gonna be all right.
Yeah. And I could say from experience being out there watching you, maybe walking across the drop zone, carrying a couple tough boxes.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to up the minimum mission.
Oh yeah, I also did probably any longer movement than 131 ever.
Yeah.
JRTC
I think that's fair. Yeah.
2 kilometers. Write that down.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So as we transition to the rotation, right? You got on ground. I think that the targeting process, the staff, I think made significant gains. We certainly got better than 1% a day, and it was genuinely enjoyable to be a part of, right? So then, Chief, as we're talking we want to lead with HE in support of the close fight, right? What are some of the successes and failures you saw through your targeting process of aligning your targeting objectives to specifically achieve effects in support of the close fight?
So first things first, this is myself and Warrior 6 agree that there is no such thing as a deep fight.
Yep.
This is up front. What he asked me to discuss was we're fighting whatever's in front of us.
Yeah.
If it's in front of us, it's not deep.
Yeah.
So that was the first step, was coming to terms that you're looking all the way out 15 clicks away. No, man, that's not happening.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're gonna get eaten alive.
Yeah,
so for our rotation, we did it probably one of the harder JFEs in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we're 82nd or 101st, but we did an air assault. We did a simulated amphibious landing off buses. But the simulation was there. We had one of our battalions walk one end of the box, the other end of the box from point to point.
Yeah.
And through the worst terrain of that southern corridor.
Yeah.
And then we did an air movement with a heavy percent of the brigade staff and another moved battalion. And then everything else was brought in through air, land, with a division who doesn't train that way.
Yeah.
So, like, just the complexity of that alone and was hard. And, like, trying to target through that, it was impossible in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't, we as an organization didn't understand, and we didn't understand the enemy, and we didn't understand ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, important first imperative of multi-domain operations, right?
It's a cool buzz phrase until you get punched in the face with it.
Yeah,
and that's what happened. Like, I'm going to keep using the boxing terms, but like, I think about day 2 of this movement, or day 3, we realized like we're not doing what we think we're going to do, and we really need to replan everything we just replanned. Yeah, because it wasn't working out.
Yeah, the operational environment here, it changes rapidly, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I want to stay on the point that you just made about like we're massing effects in the close fight, and that's what we're doing in our targeting process, right? We'll never mass effects in the close fight if we don't plan to mass effects in the close fight, right? I think that, and I see it a lot through previous both experience and through previous rotations. I think a lot of the times, either we don't understand the problem, right? Or we're trying to come up with an answer that doesn't solve the problem. So we're looking deep. We're trying to kill the 1L220. We're trying to affect all this stuff deep. And that's
second half. Everybody's chasing shiny objects.
And that's not it. We are the premise behind leading with HE is we're right in front of the flock. And the term I'll use, we're getting first down after first down after first down. We're never throwing Hail Marys. Just keep getting first downs. And if we plan that way, we will have effects. We will. We will mass in support of the maneuver formations right in front of us, and we'll be effective.
Correct. And I will tell you, there's 2 examples that we did while we were here. The first one was the defense. We went all in. The brigade commander told me to go all in on one target, and so I did what I was told, and I executed to his intent. And based off an assessment from division and from our brigade, the enemy was supposed to go north. He didn't.
Yeah.
He went south.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Sure.
When that, I think that was a lesson learned, that you don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
You got, like, I'd rather learn it here, like we said, than learn it in combat.
Yeah.
So what I should have done then, and this is a failure on my part, was probably planned a little bit like a 119er and one HIMARS mission to the south as a redundancy, and planned everything else up north.
No, and I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think that's great. I think you're right. We want to mass like you guys did, and I think that was great. I think you guys had a good plan. We had primary observers, primary and alternate observers with eyeballs. We rehearsed it, but we have to build flexibility in the plan.
Correct.
Right. And then I think
too rigid.
Yeah, and then back to your point of the enemy. We thought the enemy was coming north, and they went south. Yeah, that's just, and I love that you bring that up because it drives home the point behind the event temp. You know what I mean? COA 1, COA 2. The difference is that where they're going north or south, right? We're landing AIs over it.
There was an engineer element that triggered all this like essentially the enemy decision, or not decision point, but the event temp where it was going left to right. Yeah. The engineers went to the south.
Yeah.
We just didn't catch it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I think we were looking in the wrong spot with the IRSS, because what was PR number 1? Where's the engineer element at?
Yeah.
And follow those dudes. And then we could have maybe adjusted a lot of our targets. Maybe not the HIMARS shots, but we could have adjusted our organic assets in enough time to maybe mass with organic at that point, and maybe still had enough force with the 2 HIMARS shots to do some damage up north. And that's okay. Like, that was a learning lesson. The learning from that, the second time we learned to mass, and I think this is the first time we did it right, and it was I think I had, like, this is where I'll gloat a little bit, was I was part of the plan. And I understood ourselves at that point where we're not going to sit here and mass at 14 things at once.
No, we're not.
So
not at a brigade, no.
My recommended COA when we were on the attack was that we absolutely leapfrog bound our battalions. That was the maneuver plan. And I'm like, we can do that if we space the time out between each objective, where I have enough time to shift FA and allow them to shoot and mass per main objective, which was Malaga, Bodega, and I can't remember the towns to the south, but those Sedgwick, objective Sedgwick. So those 3 objectives, we didn't execute it perfectly. However, we were able to mass and get maneuver with minimal casualties on each objective. Some changes to the enemy happened because things changed, but we were able to mass every single time.
And I think that's great. I think, and how we transitioned from as we were expanding the allotment during the initial JFE, I don't think we had as much rigor in the detail associated with that, like understanding the scheme of maneuver and the tempo, rather, the tempo by objective, and then tying that in. And what I would offer is that's probably why we were super effective during those later objectives.
We actually had some true running estimates to feed our plan.
Facts.
We didn't have running estimates before. We were assumptions. They got turned into the fallacies.
Yeah.
It was like, no, we're not going that fast. How about we slow down to 200 meters?
And we talked about that as well. It's difficult during the initial stages when we're planning prior to the JFE. We don't have those feedback loops yet, right?
We don't.
That's what we're doing. We're planning off assumption. We might think we're going to make it 5 kilometers a day, 6 kilometers a day. And then that's the important behind the assessments, and kind of what I was talking about in our training glide path is we have to understand how those feedback in really for every warfighting function, right? Movement maneuver needs to know, like, I need to take these assessments based on rate of march, based on combat power, and I tie that back into the targeting process. And you guys did that, right? You executed it. And I think you executed that assessments piece well as your targeting process evolved.
Yeah, and I think that was like and we have young maneuver captains in there who just didn't understand what they were supposed to do. But as they started to get more reps and sets at MDMP, they understood the inputs now that fed into targeting.
Sure.
Like, oh well, if I'm only going 200 meters, an hour, well, we're not going to get that far today.
Correct. Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Correct.
Light bulb comes on.
Exactly. And that then feeds our probable line of contact. We understand the enemy when they're going to transition from movement to maneuver. I think that it's great that you guys were able to identify that stuff. And I think on the same topic, so like your working group in general, so like the inputs and outputs, I'd love to hear about how you think it evolved over time. You had mentioned potentially not training with PowerPoint, you know what I mean, getting the digital products. So just about how it evolved over time.
Well, up front, we were running things off WinTech or the was it ITN, and I can still do that. I can. I'm at least proud enough to say that we can do that. Like when they're pushing hard for digital and analog products, I feel like we can do it.
Yeah.
Now, will I get any sleep? Probably not. However, it's still feasible. It would just take a little more manpower, and we probably had to. If that's what the brigade commander, we probably need more manpower.
Yeah.
Which we don't have. But that's okay. But what we come to terms with is that a map is a map, and that's enough.
It is.
And it is.
Yep. With the McCoo, with the appropriate overlays,
correct.
It's enough. Yes.
What we did to fix ourselves was 72 hours straight of planning. When I mean 72 hours, I mean 1 hour of sleep a night to get ourselves caught back up.
Yeah.
I think you came out one day to visit me, and I was passed out because I was
correct. Yeah,
I had culminated at that point.
And then for
we were caught up.
Yeah, for reference, that's not ideal, but we had to do that to catch up.
That's what the game. That's the price you pay for not doing the right things up front.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like that's a life lesson I will forever learn.
Yeah, right.
Never make up because you can't get sleep back.
Yeah, right.
But what the positive out of it was that was the first time the plans team had finally gelled to a point where we were doing co-analysis or actually co-development, starting my TISM. Yeah. All right, starting to get it filled out. Then we're doing wargaming.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm pretty much done with my TISM.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And we stopped what we're doing immediately into a twig, tightened it up.
Yeah.
1 hour later, decision board at 4 o'clock in the morning.
And I think
it's brutal.
There's value there in what you just said, a lot of value. So I think, and we've talked, once again, another thing that we've talked ad nauseum, both in the rotation and before you getting here, is how we tying targeting into MDMP. And I say it all the time. I think there's a misconception that targeting and the target working group are synonymous, because they're not, right?
No.
Target working group, RDSP, MDP are vehicles that drive targeting, right? So how you're managing time and buying time back for your staff is by conducting targeting in MDMP during co-analysis. That way we come out and it's done, right? You know what I mean?
That goes to the point that I'm gonna do it to you now. That goes to the point of you're never gonna have a clean battle rhythm.
Yeah, ever. Yeah.
Ever. Yep. It's just not. And we tried to be this division style, you will be at this battle rhythm event.
Yep.
No. It's not happening. We are getting fragos faster than we can plan against.
Yeah.
And it's holy bananas. All right. Let's just keep planning.
Yeah.
But it came viciously to us. So you've got to be okay with being it was that uncomfortable, you gotta be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We were extremely uncomfortable. And once that we got in that groove, we were extremely comfortable being uncomfortable because we knew that it was a joke. Yep, here's another frago. All right, let's go. Let's keep it going.
And I think that's fair, Chief. I think that when we're talking time, how we build efficiencies in our running estimates, how we build efficiencies in our targeting process, we're bringing the right inputs and outputs in the fighting product, not booger note, scratch piece of paper. We're bringing the fighting product.
It was on acetate.
But getting that into our training glide path and executing it that way, it buys you time back for that specifically. I think cheesy, but Napoleon had a quote that said, there may be a time in the future that I may lose a battle, but I'll never lose a minute. And I think that's important. Like,
it absolutely is.
Right? Build efficiencies in everything, right? Bring our fighting products, targeting into MDMP, so that way as soon as I'm done with that, maybe I don't have to execute a working group that talks however many days out, right, in advance. I've already done that in MDMP, so it creates that fallacy of a time-constrained environment because I think that I needed to do both, but realistically I don't. I can just do the one.
No, and the
right?
brigade commander was about it, man.
Yeah.
Like he was like, you mean I'm knocking out 3 meetings at once? Like,
Yeah.
let's go. Because essentially, like, once we hit the decision board, he's already slapped the table on the COA.
Yeah.
We've walked the dog. He knows now, and we're just like straight orders production.
Yeah, I think building efficiency in that, it's super important. And I think we continue to talk about that, like the time horizons, like how did you manage like your personal battle rhythm, right? To kind of build time for yourself and then be postured to support like the next events.
So it took a little bit, but I would wake up every morning probably around 4:15, 4:30. I would go straight either, it just depended on if I can get the S2 together or if I could get to the top first. If I could get to the main CP first, I would go in there and get the operational assessment. Like, hey, how are we looking on combat power? How many rounds do we have? Like, this, like not the so what, but like just raw numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a coffee break in there somewhere.
Yeah, sure. Bathroom break. Yeah, sure.
Probably a couple of other things of caffeine involved to get the blood pumping. But like, you're getting that raw data, and what I'm trying to do at that point is understand where we are.
Sure.
Do we get where we're supposed to be?
Yeah, the see yourself aspect, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
How was the TISM executed? Like, did it get through it? Did you do 7-minute drills? We didn't do them sometimes, and that hurts.
Sure.
And then I would start off with the S2, and I would bring the 2 co-ops.
Yep.
In the 2, because that's where the 2 sat. The vice, who was disconnected, and then the IC manager.
Geographically. Yeah.
Geographically, yes. And then finally, the IC manager, who was sitting next to me.
Yeah.
The beauty of the IC manager sitting next to me was that he took the verbal assault that everybody else being angry. Like, you're going to take every bit of this, Mr. Burke, because I'm frustrated.
Sure.
But because, again, it goes back to inputs and outputs, and everybody's struggling to understand a very junior intelligence warfighting function. So he worked with me the most for a year. That was the bonus. But he also took the pressure that I was pushing to get to where we needed to be. But what they needed and what we needed was a synchronization meeting in the morning. And it was to synchronize what happened last night, what's currently happening, and where we see ourselves for the next day or two. Yeah. And instead of us all talking past each other, whistling past the graveyard of the enemy that's coming down the pipeline, we kind of saw it together. I'm like, okay, we're finally on the same page. We, as a targeting team, can now talk intelligently, and we have inputs. I know it's the cheesy answer of like the pre-twig, but it's a pre-twig. Yeah, I got my assessments. I got the enemy. It's your internal pre-twig to prime yourself. So what I do understand is, do I have to re-roll targets now for the next check? I have to? Did we miss a lot? Are we failing targeting objectives? Do we meet the measures of engagement or measures of effectiveness that we thought we were? Sure. And why? Like, so now I have the why, which is the bluff. Sir, we messed up here. Here's why. This is what we're doing to fix it. Yeah,
I think that's right. I think and we talked about it previously in the training glide path up too, like having that rapport with our commander and understanding how he visualizes the fight. It allows us to come together in that little targeting huddle that you did, so that way we can see ourselves, right? We can understand the enemy, and then like it helps us frame the operational environment as well to drive those inputs. I think that's great. And then I think specifically, I saw that throughout your guys' rotation as some like the event temp, like there were points in times where maybe it wasn't present, but then it was present later on, and then it gave us like something that we can reference. Hey, what is this icon showing? Like, talk to me about this icon, right?
Just how they're flowing in, because where the brigade commander wanted to see the icons was where the friction points were going to happen. Correct. Right? Yep. But they were putting where they started. So the brigade commander's like, where's the close fight at? Where's my fight at if the enemy's here and maneuver's ending here? Yeah. So that was a struggle. It was like, no, don't tell me where they start, tell me they end, and use the event temp to walk you in. Yeah. Because if he understands where they end, he sees the points of friction. Yeah. At least in the brigade commander. But if he sees the story that you're telling through the event temp, where they came from and why they're doing, and their task and purpose. It's task and purpose. Like, what is their task and purpose, and why are they doing this here? drives decisions.
Yeah, and then I think it just reinforces that we did all the right things, right? If we have an event temp, that means we understood both enemy COA 1, enemy COA 2, we overaligned them, we laid down the McCoo. By having that, it just shows that we did all the appropriate work.
And then you start signing PIR because if you do that, you have an NAI that's probably established to tell him that.
Yeah, right? It almost does itself.
Walks the dog.
Yeah, it almost,
Crazy.
No, that is great. I think that, great stuff, Chief. I think that, so we talked about the working group itself. We kind of talked about prior to and how you kind of framed it with the staff in your mind. Let's talk outputs of the working group, okay? And it's one thing that we talked out there, the maximum effective range of our targeting process, it's the canvas tent in which or the net rather in your situation that we executed that target working group, right?
Correct.
So how did you go about driving outputs and ensuring we made all the information, all the taskings made it to the lowest level?
It's cheesy as it sounds, the orders process.
Sure. No, I mean, that's not even cheesy. That's just the right answer, right?
So there was not a time that I did not make the orders process. The pushback from our internal was like, oh, I'm not getting the data I need. I'm like, did you read the order?
Yeah.
And they were like super upset about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That I did what the Army told me to do and published the order in the Frago.
Yep.
So that's the first step. The second step was we always published it over a medium in which everybody could receive it.
That's great. Across the pace, right?
Well, I wouldn't go that. We're not hitting home runs, but we did the best we could. I'm not going to lie and say we're like, we're out there pipe hitting everything. We weren't. So we made it happen and across a medium in which everybody could hear and everybody could tune into, if you will. There was not an opportunity in which anybody could ever not be part of the twig or the decision board every single day.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think you're right. Operations process and then getting our fighting products out.
Correct.
Right.
It's got to be immediate. You cannot here's my biggest struggle with that was as soon as the decision board happens, what's the first thing that happens?
Everyone scatters,
it's
right?
the opposite. Jimmy.
Oh yeah, sure. The sidebar conversations, right?
Straight.
Yeah.
Like I got to do this thing first.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you want to blow the world off your shoulders for a second. Like, let me do this, clean it up, put a frag on, I'll answer all your questions. But there's a lot of people, if you don't believe it, waiting for you to answer questions that you may or may not be able to answer at that point.
Right. Then what about our transition from plans to the coup-ops floor? What did that look like for you guys? And then how did we improve that as the rotation went on?
Oh, so I will say that I have a phenomenal AFSO or FCO, Captain Gutshaw.
Yep.
I will give him his due. Like, we understood because he's been on the division. He's been a JAGIC chief with the division. So he understood it already.
Yeah.
So I cling to him heavily because he understood the process. He knew exactly where to go in the Frago. He opened up my TISM. He understood my TISM already. I didn't have to walk that dog. What we fixed right before we came down here, based off your recommendations, was that I put a checklist in a 7-minute drill.
Yep.
When a 7-minute drill executed, I need you to check off my TISM every single time and brief it as such so that people that can make decisions to divert assets and realign assets can catch up to things the brigade commander told us to do.
Yeah.
He approved that.
Yeah. No, that's great. Obviously, knowledge management, like targeting, is an integrating process to understand where we're hanging products. And then if we develop our target synchronization matrix in a manner that tells a story, right? If we understand targeting objectives on there, if we can hopefully get to the level where we're talking MOPS and MOs, and it's almost like an execution matrix where like we can literally fight this thing. And then understand if a task didn't get achieved, or like maybe a UAS didn't fly, or we couldn't make it to the NEI, what's the effects in this? So what? I often use the comparison that can be drawn is that whenever the SWO briefs, we're typically like to beat up on the SWO, like, yes, SWO, so what? It's going to rain. What does that mean for us? But realistically, on the coup-ops floor, and when we're transitioning the plan over, as they're executing that, every time something didn't happen during the 7-minute or when we're briefing something, we need to give the so what. We just need to get to more of the meat of the information.
And I don't even think after this rotation we're there yet.
It takes reps.
It does, because I think when we finally caught our stride, like we could have kept, like if we'd have kept doing this, we would have figured it out.
Couldn't completely agree. And you guys would have. They're towards the end of the rotation, and I believe they talked it in the Intel AAR, but there was a snapshot of like the IS feed, and then a snapshot of your guys' map on the coup-ops floor and how we understood ourselves and the enemy, and it was almost identical.
Yes,
like
I've seen it.
Everything we're saying, we can get there.
My TISM was matching the enemy for like it was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I'm like, oh, wait, we planned that.
Correct.
It's crazy.
Like, this stuff seems hard, and it is hard, right? I won't take that away. What we're doing, it's very difficult, but we can execute it. But we can also do it. I'm telling you, with sets and reps, if we executed this over a 365-day period or however long the next major engagement is going to be, this is doable. It's doable on a map. It's doable with the staffs that we have.
We did a lot.
It was
I will tell you,
reassuring to see that.
because we integrated in, it goes back to the same point, because we integrated with MDMP, all the things that you're talking about, the MCU, the event temp, the enemy sit, the maneuver plan, all those things were already laid down, just slapped targets on top.
And facts. It's
like it's
really easy to see it that way, right?
Like, I'm like, man, it takes me longer to fill out my TISM than have the meeting.
Correct, right? No, it literally, it's like it paints the picture for you, right? It's almost like it's designed to be executed that way. It is pretty crazy. And then I definitely want to hit on the CUOPS floor piece there, right? Because the 360 chapter 3, based on the changes that came out, talks about we can execute 6 to 12 hour targeting processes, or 6 to 12 hour targeting cycles, if you will. And then how you think your staff did that in regards to like executing 7-minute drills and those feedback loops. Ideally, and it seems silly, but ideally we want to get stronger as the plan changes. And we're getting stronger because we have the ability to execute changes faster than the enemy can, right? Like we have our feedback loops, we're doing our 7-minute drills, and we can execute changes faster and better than you can, so our plan gets stronger as the environment changes. So I'd love to hear how your kind of staff kind of got after that.
So the misconception right now is that people think we have to have a whole nother meeting.
No, you're right, we do not.
We do not. And
no more meetings at the brigade.
Oh my God. So like that was and that's how I took it. I'm like, man, I can't do that. I don't have, like, it's just me. Like, I don't have a FAO. I have a lieutenant for a FAO right now. No offense to the young lieutenant, but he's not trained.
He did great.
He's just not trained for that. And then, I don't have another me running around to do another. Like, so like, that's the internal, like, you read that up front, you're like, you go into me, freak out, but I can't do that. Like, I was only like, I can do the thing I got right now. So, between our discussions, I'm like, I wrote down things, and I'm like, you know what? Like, and we put in our 7-minute drill. And now I put the onus back on CUOPS to do the things. Like, here's a checklist. Did I kill the thing I said I was going to kill? When I said I was going to kill it? Oh, I didn't? Why not? Did we find it? With what? Was it not there? Why wasn't it looking there? And it starts answering all the questions on the things, or it didn't present itself. Why didn't it present itself? Well, okay, 2 hours later. Do we still find it? Check. Maybe we need to look at our timing now. Maybe the enemy's not attacking it as soon as it gets dark. Maybe they're waiting a couple hours for it to get real dark. Those are the things, like, we can start doing a little internal assessments, and they can adjust that on the fly, though, because they understand what they're supposed to find.
Correct.
They have the assets aligned to do it. It's just a matter of readjusting it. Like, it's not like I'm giving them anything complicated. Find 3 BMPs. They're big.
And they're going to be right in front of the plot, right?
They're the things shooting at you right now. I'm pretty sure they're calling for fire simultaneously.
And I know we talked to your guys, the BC2 staff at AR there at the end, talking about feedback loops internally in our warfighting functions, then as a staff, right? As we're executing that fight, and as you're saying, in accordance with each decide, detect, deliver, assess, right? The detect portion, Intel could be conducting their own internal feedback loops to understand, did we find it, didn't we find it, right? And then in the deliver aspects, in the fire's warfighting function, our own internal feedback loops. So that way when we come together, either to do a 7-minute drill or a 2-minute drill, hey, this is the so what from my warfighting function, how the enemy's changed, how the friendly scheme of maneuver has changed, and then it drives us right into some sort of RDSP execution, right? And that is the vehicle that drives targeting, and that's how we get faster.
And to be straight up, like the masters of RDSP should be the CUOPS.
It's executed on the CUOPS floor.
Yes. I'm sorry, here's your assets. I'm on to the next day. Like, they're the one, like, oh man, we got to spin mode.
Churning it quick, And back to fundamentally, right? I think if we just understand, if we're briefing in the 7-minute drill, if we understand our objectives, right? We understand our effects, our tasks, our conditions. If we have all the understanding of that, we understand my task didn't get executed. This effect isn't going to happen. The condition that you wanted me to achieve isn't going to be done. We can no longer achieve this objective, right?
Correct.
If we have the shared understanding on the CUOPS floor, it has to be palpable. Like, we have to be able to touch it. Like, that's so much shared understanding that as soon as we say this task didn't get achieved, I now understand the so what and the so what associated with the conditions and the objective, right? And that's going to make us faster, and we can get there. We can.
And it's unfortunate that you're just so bogged down that I don't get to walk into CUOPS ever.
Yeah, fair.
You don't get to enjoy,
correct.
Like, you don't get to enjoy like what you work for because you're on to the next.
Yeah, fair.
So
right?
I did find some time to get in there, and like when it mattered the most to hammer home to the FCO, like, listen, man, this is what matters, and this is what it is, and these are the assets. So, like, if you can take 2 minutes of your time to get up and walk,
it's important.
Because we were also, our plans and our CUOPS was not connected either geographically. It's okay to walk 500 meters to the CUOPS tent. You're not going to die. Like, it's hot, but come on.
It is hot.
But like, it's going to be okay. and go and just like iterate things that are like important. Like this is the one thing that matters today.
Yeah.
If you don't get anything else right, get this right, because then it will start setting dominoes to the.
And it gives you that azimuth check as well, right? The touch points that you have with co-ops. Hey, as I'm developing the plan in the next 24 hours or whatever it may be, it's that azimuth check, right?
Our biggest thing was the T90s. They never presented.
Yeah.
But it stayed on my HPT, even though like it's not a realistic brigade target. Like we just don't have based off the current JMM and munitions. We just don't have the supporting cast to deal with those.
Sure.
But we were prepared through making this proper request through division to get properly resourced to handle that. But they just never presented. Yeah. But that was the only thing I wish I would have we would have had a better read on. I don't think they were. I think they were in the AO. I just never saw them present, which is okay. Because we were prepared for that. But that was the one thing we missed that I wish we would have caught, or it just wasn't our fight at the time. Because it wasn't directly in front of us.
And I think that's back to the assessments piece, right? Like when we're looking at the decide portion, you know what I mean? Hey, T90s, we've said it for a couple of days now that it's going to be our problem, if you will. But it hasn't presented itself yet. Then it drives back. Hey, does NMCO 1 or is NMCO 2 wrong? Do I just have the timing and is the event temp wrong? And the points back to feedback loop.
Is the event temp like they expected them to reinforce earlier?
Yeah,
and they just never did, and that's okay.
It's going to happen, sure. Enemies going to vote.
They might not want to give up those T90s and save for another day.
Correct, but and then just. Yeah, the point is obviously we need to get faster, and then we want our plans to get stronger as the operational environment changes. And then simple plans, right? Any plan that's too cumbersome takes longer to adjust, right? Take longer to make refinements. So simple, repeatable, executable plans to kill the enemy right in front of us.
Well, I will tell you that coming in 3 different ways from Sunday to an AO is not simple.
It's not fair, but it was a great training opportunity.
Oh, it was great training opportunity. Not easy. I think we kind of left there a little disappointed, but we're not built at 10th Mountain to go do something like that. So for us to do it and never really got the true sets and reps of that, we never done air land. We're never going to be supported up there doing air land. Yeah. We're never going to do an amphibious landing or even simulated because we never hadn't had the opportunity to train on that. I get it. We did good things.
You guys did great things.
We were never trained to do or built to do. So I'm impressed that we got that far. Even when we struggled, we did the things.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that you guys did super well. So as we look towards advice for future targeting officers that come behind you, right here at either at JRTC or in large scale combat, and any other future targeting officers, what advice would you give them that you've learned here, or frankly in your career thus far?
Don't rush to failure.
Sure.
And this isn't an argument over what rank goes to where before we even go down that rabbit hole. Everybody wants to come out of WOBIC and be a brigade targeting officer. It always is the job. When I came in, that's what I wanted to do. That's why I'm on right now.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do it. It's something it was the man back in the day.
Yeah.
And I still sometimes feel like you are the man to a point. And it's shifted more to the division targeting officer now. But I still wanted to do it. But what I will give you advice is first things first. Don't rush. If you've got a brand new W2, you lack the experience and knowledge to do this job. That's first thing.
Yeah.
And then you don't get to go. Most jobs you don't get to go back and do again.
No. And have fun in the job you're doing, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Enjoy where you are right now and learn and build up to it. Yeah. And if you're still a W2 and you be but wait a little bit. Don't rush to failure. Yeah. That's the first thing.
Sure.
Second thing, don't know your commander. Know your commander first. And try to meet his intent. If he wants the targeting decision board or coordination board to be a certain way, meet his intent.
Yeah.
My brigade commander wanted 15 minutes or less. He wanted dominoes.
Yeah. And that's fair. I think that's what it looks like, right? At the brigade level, the TCB, 15 minutes, hood of a Humvee, map, overlays. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the second thing is meet your commander's intent, but understand it does not have to be a dog and pony show.
No, it does not.
We don't roll red carpet out there. Nope. None of that happened. Yep. And typically the brigade commander was dragging his rifle to me because he hadn't slept yet. So give the man I'm blocked off an hour of his time. The way I looked at it was if I give him 45 minutes to sleep after my meeting, I'd just do the man a favor.
Yep, we never wasting a minute. I think that's great.
No. Yeah. So that's the first thing is understanding that it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be dirty. Your mask's going to be disgusting. You're going to be disgusting. So might as well just live in it, Be one with it. Other things, do your best to get training in where you can. Like, so like the one thing post LTP, we didn't get any more targeting training.
Yeah.
And we had some staff turnover internally to like the plans team. Yeah. And I didn't get a rep with them until we got out here. And I was strong enough to like help carry them. Yeah. If you will, like advise them, like, sir, this is what you're supposed to be doing, sir. Yeah. Like, I know what you need, but like getting the horse to drink water and seeing the light bulb turn on for them, it took about like halfway through the rotation where like I got a lot of training in the rear. And the only reason why is because we didn't get to that training event because there's nothing afforded at that time.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one of the things that we coach here before a brigade staff comes through, right? We want 10 iterations of MDMP. And we got to be creative of how we get that. You know what I mean? And the same thing from the targeting aspect, what I would offer is we probably need, if we're going to execute working groups as a daily battle room event, we probably need 10 working groups before we come to JRTC. And it doesn't have to be anything giant and amazing. It could literally be a map, a couple overlays, enemy and friendly sit like we talked about, and run through a targeting process. But we have to execute that. And it could be done, put it on the battle rhythm a Friday at 1500, 15 to 16. We bring our fighting products in and execute it. It doesn't have to be super elaborate.
No, it doesn't. And if you're doing it right, it takes 15 minutes.
Yeah. With the right inputs, the right outputs, the right homework done ahead of time, yes, it can be fast.
I can go 2 days in 15 minutes right now.
We can do it.
No problem.
Yeah. And like, with the right inputs and outputs.
What I've learned is like it's okay for the Targo just to talk most of it.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
It driving makes it faster. Like because if you're doing your job, you understand what everybody said already. It's up here. Yeah. And all I would let happen was weather happens, the enemy, the S2 breeze maneuver. Yeah. The S3 would plan maneuver or say maneuver. I'm sorry, the S2 breeze enemy maneuver, and then I'd go. Yeah. Like, sir, here's the targets, blah, 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 blah. Any eyes, that's still good. Yep. Check.
And it's fast. It's not an op sync. We don't have to talk about all the operation stuff. They had that conversation before they came to the working group, right?
One thing we didn't discuss, too, was, like, decisions up front.
Check.
It prompts them. Fact. Now, my brigade commander wants to enter those decisions now without any information. Yeah. He loves decisions, and he's going to come on top of it. But if you prompt, like you just led me to do, is like, start with decisions up front. Sir, here's your decisions right now. I don't need an answer from you. Yeah. Just be ready to answer them when you hear that data.
It helps frame it. The coordination board.
It does.
That's a great point. The decisions up front. It's the opening paragraph to a paper you're writing, right? That's exactly this is what I'm about to tell you. All right. Now your mind is framed. This is what I'm telling you. Or then you give him the data, the so what, to feed those decisions. And then in the conclusion, right, this is what you told me. This is what I believe your decisions were. Or maybe, hey, you didn't answer this one, or I'm unclear of this one. What is it that you want, right?
Correct. And so like that, when I would write on like a Word document, like, hey, here's the decisions for the day. So I didn't have to think about it because you're going to be pretty tired when you're doing this. So I just read off the script. Like, I know you don't like the script, sir, but like, hey, man, you got to give me some words here.
Or write, like we talked about, write on the TSM. Yeah. Right? Every one of the lines of your D3A, we write the decision next to that we're trying to get you up from the boss.
Exactly. Whatever you got to do is skin the cat. Yep. But like for me, it was easy to put thoughts on paper while I'm doing it. But whatever works for you, so it's easy to pop out.
Correct.
Hey, sir, that's the decision. What do you want? Yep. It's typically like on a day-to-day, it's like a minor shift in your HBTL or a decision point that was identified through MDMP. Yeah. Like, hey, pop it up now. Like, let's go. Yeah. All right. Or you don't see his decisions to trigger. Let's go. Like, it's real quick stuff, and like he sees it. It's like, can you brief it?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly think it frames him in, right?
It does.
Yep. I mean, he's tired, like you said.
We're all tired.
Group tired. Everyone is, right? Yeah. It just frames him in as we're going through and providing the subsequent information associated with the decision, right?
So, like, that would be my one thing is like start off, know your commander.
Yeah.
Get the report early. That drives training.
Yeah.
Whatever training you can do, whatever you can get it. Like
get it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And get it inside these. Don't be afraid to go to the field.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Like you're in a brigade. You're going to the field.
Yeah.
That was second one would be. Well, my third one would be like that right there. Is like start with your decision board. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's not got to be like anything gorgeous or anything like that. And finally, like know your inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
And make sure they know their inputs and outputs.
Correct. Fighting products, not booger notes.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want it on the map.
Yeah.
In picture mode because I'm not the smartest man in the world, so I need pretty crayons and colors, like so I can understand. Yeah. But that's it. Like the big ones. Then finally, like. Don't wait till MDP is over with. Like what I did was, in my lessons learned was, and we as an organization tried to overplan JRTC when we went too far. So I couldn't figure out how to put my TISM in there.
Yeah.
Like if you see that, bring it up. Like, hey, like I can't write a TISM for 14 days.
Yeah, fair.
It's
right?
not going to be right, and I'm going to waste.
No, I think that's fair. I think, hey, we're at CoDev. Hang on. we can't transition to co-analysis. I don't think I have all my appropriate outputs yet. Don't be afraid to say like, hang on, pump the brakes. There's still some staff work that needs to be done. I think that's fair. Keeping the staff honest. I think that's great.
I think the last thing, that would be the last thing is like understanding like where like your inputs and outputs. And if we're like went too far down a rabbit hole, you got to bring it up because like if I can't put it on a TISM, that means we haven't planned it appropriately.
Yeah. So I really appreciate your time. What I'll do now is I'll throw it over to you actually. So any questions, comments, thoughts?
Like this was a good experience. Like I'm probably the oldest 131 right now that's at the BCT level, which is okay.
It is okay.
I asked to do this.
Plenty of wisdom, right?
Yeah. Like I got punched in the face a lot before I got here, so like taking more punches is okay. But I feel like I was smarter now. Like that, I've been a little more seasoned. Like I was ready for this. It's okay not to like. I guess my biggest thing is it's okay not to like be a brand new W-2 and be a targeting officer. Yeah, I would almost like not telling you when to do it, but like
get your experience.
Get your experience first. Yeah, know what you're talking about. Learn from your mentors. Like I have two big mentors. It's CW4 Chris Orta and CW4 Todd Franklin. Yeah, those two dudes like they will answer my phone call at any point in time, answer my text messages at any point in time, and one of them's downrange right now and still answers my messages on the minute. But find those mentors and like let them explain to you, and they will probably tell you, slow down. Yeah. Get the knowledge, get the experience, and listen to the people that are giving you the good, positive feedbacks, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, that's great, Chief. Really appreciate your time. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for joining us on The Crucible, the JRTC experience.
The Joint Readiness Training Center is the premier Crucible training experience. We prepare units to fight and win in the most complex environments against world-class opposing forces. We are America's leadership laboratory. Again, we'd like to thank our guests for participating. This podcast was created and produced by Mr. John Mabes. Executive producer is Lieutenant Colonel Drew Zabriskie. It was recorded by Captain Jermaine Branch and edited by Mr. Travis Boyle. Series intros were built by Chief Thomas Rich, and vocals were done by Mr. Robert Chopper. Special thanks to Mr. Jeff England and the Fort Johnson Public Affairs Office. Be sure to like and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest warfighting TTPs learned through the Crucible that is the Joint Readiness Training Center. Follow us by going to https://linktr.ee/JRTC. We'd like to thank our partners at the Center for Army Lessons Learned of the Combined Arms Center, especially the JRTC Call Observations Detachment. Be sure to follow them on social media as well. Follow them at https://www.army.mil/CALL. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and review us wherever you listen or watch your podcasts, and be sure to stay tuned for more in the near future. The Crucible, the JRTC experience, is a product of the Joint Readiness Training Center.